Well, this morning we have the honor of hearing from one of our own beloved members, Christy Scattarella. Christy, will you come join me here as I introduce you? Christy spent her career as a journalist specializing in children's issues, and she is also the founder and former CEO of a nonprofit that serves students with learning challenges. Her latest endeavor is as a budding advocate for people living with Alzheimer's. Christy, you were diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease over a year ago. And the title of your talk today is An Optimist's Guide to Alzheimer's.
So I guess I've outed myself with that title. But now you know, I'm an optimist. Now, having Alzheimer's does challenge my optimism at times. Like when I think I'm making a phone call, but I'm pressing the keys on my laptop instead and wondering, why doesn't anyone pick up? Or putting my underwear on sideways in the morning and then not noticing until it's time to go to bed. But on this, my optimism remains firm. There is a path to meaningful life after Alzheimer's diagnosis. Today, I offer my guide for that journey, whether it's for you or someone you care about, a partner, a parent, a grandparent, even your best friend. I'm 3 years into this journey, but I also have some prior experience. Dementia took my father, my oldest sister, and along with cancer, it took my mother. Still, when I got my diagnosis, I was stunned. The optimist in me just assumed that the doctor wanted to rule out the disease. I cried. I screamed myself hoarse and grieved a future I thought I could never have. I couldn't bear to tell Ken, my husband, so I didn't for nearly 2 months. But thinking something horrible was inside me became exhausting. And I realized I did not want to spend the rest of my life incubating a monster. So, this led to the first guidepost on my journey. One day, I was staring out the window in need of comfort, and I saw a baby deer in the backyard who was nibbling grass, and she lifted her head and she looked me right in the eye, and I'm like, oh, it's a sign. And then she went back to nibbling grass. I laughed and thought, I love this. I love my goofy life. And for that moment, I replaced fear with love and realized I could do it over and over again. In fact, it inspired me to try something that sounds counterintuitive. I began looking for any possible good from Alzheimer's, that could come from Alzheimer's. And I found myself discovering a way to have Alzheimer's without it having me. I called this guidepost, Find the Good. Now, I've always been very close to my son, Alex, who you met, and many of you know Ken, my husband. But now, with the two of them, I can't even begin to describe how loved and supported I feel. And another thing, you know that stuff you always say you're going to do someday but keep putting off? Is that familiar to anybody at all? Yes, okay. We're doing it all now. After 2 decades of talking about it, we finally transformed our dark, drab living room into a bright oasis. And soon we're off to Egypt, fulfilling my husband's lifelong dream. But the greatest gift was realizing I would not go back to being the person I was before Alzheimer's. I'd been a textbook workaholic. Now I make time for what matters most. I'm a more compassionate friend, reaching out to people instead of waiting for them to reach out to me. Frankly, I enjoy life more, and I awaken most days happy and grateful. This diagnosis also pushed me to create a vision of what I want and live into it. So now, every day, I see Ken and I swimming in the ocean next to Haystack Rock, and we're coming out of the water, shivering happily, actually maybe staggering out of the water. And we wrap ourselves in a giant beach towel and hug each other tightly. And this vision, it's a decade from now. Is that realistic? Maybe not. But is it possible? Only if I believe. And let me tell you, I believe. My next guidepost, finding purpose. Now we all know that purpose is vital to our well-being. But people with Alzheimer's, it can be a lot harder. In fact, a 2023 study found that just receiving an Alzheimer's diagnosis can reduce our sense of purpose, and that can lead to apathy. And yet, there is something in the human spirit that can rise above diminishing brain cells. I know this because I saw it happen in my own family. My father had a dashing figure. In fact, I had a childhood friend who would often say, "Your dad reminds me of James Bond." But over time, Dad began to change, a little at first, and then more dramatically, as if pieces of him were disappearing, one after the other. One day he confided to me, "Don't tell Mom, but I'm falling asleep at red lights." I said, "Oh, Dad, I'm so sorry. That must be so difficult for you." And at the end of our conversation, speaking of cars, mine's in the shop. Can I borrow yours? He never noticed that I never gave it back. My brilliant, debonair dad, always the most powerful person in the room, had Alzheimer's. Now, my middle sister Debbie always lived at home, and in her mid-30s, she developed type 2 diabetes, and the dialysis really weakened her. And it got to the point that she had so many heart attacks that the paramedics rushing through the front door would greet Susan, the family cat, by name. As Debbie declined, Dad rallied. Now, don't get me wrong, many things he could no longer do. But he found a way, something inside himself, to do what mattered most to him, and that was to take care of Debbie. And I can't tell you how much Debbie basked in all that love and attention. After she passed, Dad would say to me, "I've lost my job. I've lost my job." Purpose empowers us to rise above any prognosis, if, like my dad, only temporarily. Numerous studies have found that having a sense of purpose can actually improve cognitive function, and it may even slow the onset of Alzheimer's symptoms. Purpose can also remain when just about everything else is gone. My oldest sister had Lewy body dementia, and toward the end, when she was unable to control her movements or even communicate, I saw my brother-in-law cradle her face like this, and she turned just slightly, kissed his hand, looked up, and smiled at him, something she hadn't done in months and months. A few weeks later, she was gone. My purpose is informed by Tikkun Olam, a Jewish belief in leaving the world a better place. For me, that has meant raising awareness about child abuse and later supporting kids with learning challenges to succeed in school. Now, my purpose is right in front of me, to offer hope and to advocate for people living with Alzheimer's. Now, my third guidepost is a way to potentially mitigate symptoms of the disease by using an ability that all of us have, and I'm talking about laughter. Now, a while back, Ken was reading the New Yorker, and he said, "Oh my gosh, you've got to hear this article. It's about a bunch of rabbis who enter a funniest rabbi contest." And the first few get up, and they're really not so funny. And the next guy gets up, and he totally bombs. And then the next rabbi gets up, and he's talking about his life on a kibbutz bordering Nazareth. And he's describing the green rolling hills, and they're just chock full of grazing sheep. And he's thinking to himself, we've got the makings of a great product here. And so he announces his idea to the kibbutz leaders, and he says, and we'll call our product Cheeses of Nazareth. Yeah, I couldn't stop laughing either. And boy, did it feel good. It's hard for me to say it without laughing. Without Cheeses of Nazareth, I doubt I'd be standing here right now. Why? Some days, I'll admit, are like an endless game of hide and seek with every item in the house. Or even a slog like doing your taxes over and over again and still not getting them right. When you add stress and frustration to existing Alzheimer's syndromes, you get a vicious cycle that can devolve into a downward spiral. And you know what? Remembering my laugh line, we all know what it is, breaks that cycle. Laughter releases all these great feel-good chemicals that boost our mood, our memory, even cognitive function. In fact, they can even reduce cortisol, the stress hormone. And let me tell you, I need those chemicals often. Like the time I was running late for my annual physical, and I was so late, it's like, oh my gosh, the doctor's not going to even see me. But the receptionist assured me, no, actually you're early by 6 months. I don't do so well with my calendar anymore. And I really needed those chemicals that day at the grocery store when I was so proud. For once, I had my wallet. I had my cell phone with the grocery list on it, and I bought every single item on that list. It was like trifecta. Then I walked happily into the parking lot, and there was my car with the engine still running. Yeah. When stressed, I can forget my laugh line, and I need Ken or any of you to remind me to say, Jesus of Nazareth. Thank you. Let's take this a step further, shall we? The human race is the only species blessed with an enormous gift, one we don't use nearly often enough, and that is the ability to laugh at ourselves. Now, again, it sounds counterintuitive, but those people who are brave enough to reveal their weaknesses engender endearment, even respect. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "He who laughs at himself will never run out of anything to laugh at." His philosophy, we can't control everything that happens, but we can control our response. So now, rather than beat myself up over a myriad of daily mishaps, I allow myself to laugh at myself instead. And this is such a great thing because excuse me, I knew there was going to be a goof here, but I'd like to blame it on Alzheimer's, whether it's true or not. This coping mechanism helps us accept ourselves just as we are, and it helps us maintain our dignity and self-respect, even in our most undignified moments. So, find yourself a laugh line and allow yourself to laugh gently at you. Now here's something that really excites me. It's a recent scientific advancement that has the potential to revolutionize the Alzheimer's journey, but only with our participation. A few months ago, the FDA approved a blood test that can predict the disease up to 16 years in advance of symptoms. I know. At age 45, you have a 1 in 7 chance of getting Alzheimer's, and the answer is in your blood right now. So what does this mean? It means that far more people than we could have imagined will know that they face Alzheimer's, and possibly the stigma that often accompanies it. That pervasive stereotype that we're just one feeble step from death's door. But what if America's second most dreaded disease became a catalyst for greater hope and connection? What if we reframed Alzheimer's not as the end of possibility, but a call to discovering greater forms of joy, meaning, and unforeseen love? As Susan Morant did with Beth Dell, who many of you know. Even in a divisive culture, we can still come together on this. Alzheimer's doesn't play politics. Any political party can be a potential victim. My belief is that now is the pivotal time for transformation. A transformation that will lead not only to longevity, but greater quality of life. Consider the status quo. A study by the Alzheimer's Society found that after telling people about their diagnosis, more than 60% felt isolated, and more than 1 in 4 lost friends at a time they needed those friends most. When a retired professor shared his diagnosis, he responded, the dinner invitations stopped. My weekly golf games disappeared. It was as if I became invisible overnight. The loss of memory is devastating. The loss of relationships, unbearable. Now, why do friends abandon us? Often it's due to discomfort, fear, or even dread. They can see that perhaps this could happen to them as well. Maybe you don't know what to do or what to say, but know this, you matter. Your companionship gives us a sense of belonging. It can even slow our cognitive decline. And don't we all want to be the person who shows up for others? Of course, this UUFM community is a fabulous example of that. So for friends and family, I offer 3 guideposts. Jump in, even if you're uncomfortable. Ann Basting is someone who really jumped in. She jumped into a locked memory care unit, bringing with her the key to joy for those inside. Now, she was a volunteer and she made some initial blunders and got over it. And then she was also a theater artist, and she decided to introduce improv exercises. And that transformed the patient's experience. So, you see, people with advanced Alzheimer's, they hear the word no a lot because others deny their reality. Imagine what it felt like to hear the words yes and, which is the first rule of improv. The work that Ann pioneered is now in 49 states and 24 countries. Next guidepost, adapt. Ken, my wonderful husband, has adapted by eliminating phrases like, "Don't you remember?" and "I already told you that." And he also so gracefully accepts the changes as they come and continue to come. My sister Leslie's dementia caused horrifying hallucinations. Wild animals were in her room, and they intended to harm her. At first I'd say to her, "It's okay, Leslie, there's no animals here, you don't have to worry." But you know what? All that did was make her wrong. So I learned instead to say, "I won't let them hurt you, and I'm going to stay with you as long as they're here and hold your hand until they go away." And they did. Finally, keep commitments. Please do not let dementia break them. We're strong, but we are also more vulnerable. We know that true friends don't hide. Instead, they meet us where we're at. My friend Amy is dedicated to Sarah, who was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's over 4 years ago. Now, Sarah is very well-to-do. She lives in a top-of-the-line facility, has full-time paid caregivers, and apparently she's absolutely delightful. She also has a large family and decades of friends that she knew from her sorority days. Almost nobody visits. So when Amy learned that Sarah, who she not only visits but takes on hikes, when she learned that no one planned to see Sarah on her favorite holiday, Easter, Amy invited her to her own family's Easter brunch, giving everyone a heads up that Sarah eats with her hand as she can no longer manage utensils. They said, "Oh, thanks for letting us know." And everyone had a fabulous time, and no one gave a second thought to how Sarah ate. Consider this. Our greatest accomplishments in life required us to do 3 things: jump in, adapt, and commit. And aren't you glad you did? My darling son, Alex, is highly committed to my safety, and I imagine one day he will come to me and say, "Hey, Mom, my car's in the shop." And I know he'll do it with love. You can have Alzheimer's without it having you, but it's a whole lot better when we have each other. Assuming we all make it to age 45, 1 in 7 of us will get Alzheimer's. Whether it's you or someone you love, I hope you all find your own Jesus of Nazareth.